Mike Detillier, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to T-Town.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Mike, do you ever think about NASCAR and UFC and PGA and kind of telling us, hey, you know what? You can have sports. You can have fun. You can smile. Maybe they got the ball rolling down the hill.
Yeah, I think it's rolling down pretty good now. We'll see how, no one can predict the future with all this, but, seeing it coming back little by little by little, you get it that it's headed in the right direction now, and then just hope we don't have a setback in any kind of way. But after the last week has certainly been encouraging if you're a sports fan, and also back to some reality of life for people. We all know people that really been hurt by this, not being able to go to work.
Sure.
That your income's kind of shut down. I've always said, man, I got so much respect for single mothers having to raise, a couple kids by themselves, that sort of thing. And, you see this short period of time where everything's sort of shut down, and you got to make the best of it at that point. You got to do what you have to do. But, Ryan, I think we've certainly headed, looks as though back to some form of normalcy, whatever you want to define that to be.
Mike, what's it like in your state? Because we always try to get a pulse on what's happening locally there. Are you guys beginning to open up? What's changed in the last couple of days?
Yeah, it's starting to open up pretty good. We've got a number of businesses that have, locally where I'm at, have started to open up. Same thing in the city. There are some limitations to a lot of that, but it is starting to open up. And we've seen the numbers flatten and then start to head down. We were hit hard in this area. And, I told you right off the bat, I knew it was going to be bad here. Just a little older community with a lot of pre-existing conditions. They got cash. I mean, they'll swear they don't have a nickel, but they got it. But just a little older community, man, sometimes hard-headed. I'm going to do things my way, and nobody's going to tell me any different. And then all of a sudden, we went through a 2-week cycle, Ryan, that was unbelievable. The amount of cases with it, I know 5 different people that have passed away from it. And so it has affected the people down here a little bit different than, say, in other places. I've talked to people in Mississippi and Tennessee and even in northern Alabama. They weren't hit by this. And down here, I knew it because of the age, pre-existing conditions, and also Mardi Gras. That was, to me, certainly a breeding ground for what happened just weeks later. And but we, luckily, the numbers have flattened and now are on the downside. And the places where you can get tested here, you used to see lines. It was like trying to get into an LSU game. The lines were unbelievable. Today, I passed in there to go pick up something for one of my granddaughters, and there were 4 cars. 4.
Wow.
So that's a big difference than what I had seen in the past. So it has gotten better, and like I say, it's a little bit more normalcy here than we've seen at any other time since basically the start of March.
Mike, you are one of those unique guests that we feature that you cover both the professional side of things of the New Orleans Saints, but also the LSU Bengal Tigers. What do you see as going to be the biggest hurdle that colleges are going to have to overcome that maybe NFL's not going to have to overcome with inviting their athletes back to a locker room?
Man, Ryan, that's a toughie. I know the toughest thing is going to be young players at any level. If it's rookie or undrafted free agents in the NFL, or if it's freshmen or redshirt freshmen, because missing the spring took away their ability to teach teaspoon-wise. Now, you're going to have to do this tablespoon-wise. It's going to be given to you at a big dose, a little bit different terminology, and picking up, from high school or as a redshirt freshman to get some playing time. So I think there is some correlation there, but again, you're talking about training camp with with 90 bodies out there. You look at college football, sort of a lot of the same sort of situations happening on both ends. And how do you handle it? Nobody's got a real good, answer to it. And I think everybody's got different ideas about how things will be done. I wish there would be a part in July that the NCAA would open up, similar to the NFL, to have maybe a couple weeks of OTAs. You've missed all your spring, to maybe have a little bit of that before you get into fall drills, or what's going to be looked at as fall drills. So it's a different environment today, totally different. And the biggest thing I hear from college coaches is a fear on their part. They don't fear that the season will start on time. They think season will start on time. Biggest fear is toward the end of the year, where a lot of people are saying we could have a second surge of this. Now, I think we'd be better handling it because you've got some experience. I don't know that they'll have a vaccine or anything else by that time, but I think that's the biggest fear. I talked to Coach O about this. He's like, Mike, just think about what would happen. We roll through this, and we're playing in December, and all of a sudden this happens in late December.
Oh, yeah.
No bowl games. All this is shut down.
I mean, take the last year, for example. Joe Burrow, the night before the championship, he's got a fever, and he tests positive for coronavirus.
He ain't playing.
What do you do? I mean,
he ain't playing.
So that changes the entire thing. And you could say NBA. I mean, what if LeBron James gets there and he has a situation? So Mike, here's the crazy part. Because we know that heat is one of the enemies of the coronavirus, is there any chance that we move this thing up? You see Notre Dame's going back to school 2 weeks earlier where they can kind of prepare for that. Is there any way that you could go up, move the season up rather than pushing it back?
Ryan, it would certainly be something that the NCAA would have to look at. Now, does everybody comply at that point?
Great point.
And that's the part I can't tell you. Is everybody on the same page? The one thing with the NFL, also when they make a rule and everybody complies, there's no discussion about it. That's just the way it's going to be, and you deal with it. That there were some NFL head coaches and GMs that kicked. Why are we starting free agency and all this? The NFL told them, keep your mouth shut unless you want to get fined. You didn't hear a squawk about it. Same thing with moving the draft back. There were some head coaches and GMs that openly said this should be moved back. The NFL told them, hey, shut up. Just do your job. Just do it. Don't worry about it. This is all going to be worked out. And you know what? The NFL got it right. And I give them full credit. And this isn't a Roger Goodell decision. This is a decision being made by influential owners who have his ear, that tell him what to do. If you believe that Roger Goodell makes these decisions, I got mountain front property behind my home here on the bayou to sell you. He don't make no decisions. They tell him what's going to be done. And he's the Secret Service agent. Something goes wrong, you take the bullet. We're not taking it, you will. And so that's why they pay him $40 million a year. But, man, I just think about, those sort of situations. It could be moved up. I think you're going to have to make that decision very quickly, though, Ryan. You can't piddle around with this. And, the NCAA has no czar to say, this is what all of you are going to do. This is what everybody's going to do. They don't have that decision. There is no one like that. And every conference is going to be a little bit different.
Mike, we're
good and the bad of it.
We're getting some breaking news around the NCAA. Student Athlete Advisory Committee issued an opinion statement recommending changes to the current transfer eligibility rule. Back in February, the transfer rule waiver group, and I'm going 247 Sports, introduced a concept that would change waiver criteria to allow approvals for the first-time four-year transfers in all sports to compete immediately if they receive a transfer release in the previous school, leave their school academically eligible, maintain their academic progress at the new school, and leave under no disciplinary suspension. We're one step closer to this new transfer rule. What do you think?
It's college free agency, isn't it? That's
It
what
has to
sounds
be.
like.
It has to be. Is it good for the sport, Mike? Or will it be good for the sport? I guess is.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan, here's my thing. If you want to leave, and you got to have it in a certain time frame. You can't do this in late August. Okay? You can't have carte blanche where you can leave a team right at the end of, say, fall drills without sitting out. I get if you want to leave, that's fine. But this transfer stuff now, boy, you walking on some waters with crocodiles in it. I'm just telling you, where you've opened up the genie in the bottle, you ain't gonna be able to put back. There's got to be some specifics here. Where listen, if the guy's graduated, the guy's got his academics in line, everything else, and he wants to leave, that's fine. But boy, you got a lot of circumstances here of how the NCAA will rule on all of that, and you leaving it in their hands. We've seen guys leave and get immediate eligibility, and you say, how can that happen? And the next guy they rule against. So I'm not real sure how all that's going to work out, but you're walking into crocodile water.
If you give them immediate eligibility,
man, immediate eligibility is the thing, because now you're going to have players who say, you know what, I got enough, I'm out of here. I can go play somewhere else, and they got a spot for me. I'm out. Yeah, so I know one thing, the small colleges love it, because I've talked to some of the small colleges already, coaches there, and their deal is, man, listen, I'll take it any day of the week. Now, one of the things that it could potentially open up to is if you got a star player at a small college, and North Dakota State went through this with Jabril Cox. Okay, Jabril was looking at coming out early, decides, you know what, I'm going back to North Dakota State. And then they had people in his ear say, why are you going back there? Why are you going back to North Dakota State? So his deal is, tag me. He's at LSU today. He could have went anywhere in the country. Everybody was after him. Alabama, Tennessee, everybody was chasing after Jabril. Now, if you got a star player at a small college school, wouldn't you go after him if he had immediate eligibility? And wouldn't that guy think about that pretty long and hard? Okay, nothing against a small college, but if you're at a McNeese State or you're at a Sam Houston and you can go play at an LSU in Alabama or Florida.
Yeah,
I'm out. See you guys. I'll see you in the NFL. I'm out of here. So, Ryan, I'm just telling you, you in some water that's going to be pretty dangerous to muster around. And they have to have a different time frame, though, to do this. They can't have it at any time, because that's what's going to make this difficult. The free agency part, I think all of us better get used to it. It's going to happen one way or another in college football. It is going to occur. But how it's done, it's going to be, the devil's in the details.
Well, and like I said, it's another step, which it looks like that they continue to move that direction as, maybe some dead time. So the conversation around that, Mike, where do you stand with this?
But Ryan, you know what? They don't want you to take it to court. That's the other, is the legalized issue with that. That some 19-year-old's going to say, I got enough of this. I'm taking you to court. I'm going to sue you from the NCAA standpoint. And the NCAA don't want to deal with that. Just like the NFL didn't want to deal with a head issue, a concussion issue in federal court. They didn't want to deal with that at all. We sell a lot of court, and then they started changing all the rules, so to speak. And I think the NCAA wants to avoid that somebody or a group of players gather together and say, we're taking you to court and we're going to sue you for immediate eligibility if we transfer. And, my partner, Bobby J., Bobby Hebert, he was like that in free agency. They didn't have free agency until they had that lawsuit back in 1990 with him, Reggie White, Freeman McNeil, Gil Bird, all those guys. Bobby sat out the season because they refused to give him a contract. He he wanted to get paid he said, Mike, that was big bucks. I wanted to get paid $1 million a year. And Jim Finks told me, no, you fighting for a job. With John Fourcade, he was like, fighting for it? What do you mean fighting for it? I've been the starter here. And wouldn't give it to him. Bobby sat out the entire season. He went to federal court in Minnesota. Judge Doty gave him a deal that he sat out the year, right, and got him $8.5 million tax-free.
Oh, wow. Wow.
For that Cajun boy, he knew how to count money.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. Mike, I want to stay in Cajun country here a minute. Alabama gets a big one from your area. Kaine Williams, a commitment last Friday. What do you know?
Well, Kaine's been to a couple of our camps. Big physical guy, tall, rangy, safety. John Eric plays him a lot in the box, almost like another linebacker. I've also seen him play sort of center field, and he's really good at it. Comparison, and I like to do it because I think it sort of gives you the type player. He reminds me a lot of Ronnie Harrison. That was at Alabama.
Sure.
He's built along those lines. Tall, rangy guy, really good player against the run, very physical. Eric used him a lot coming off the edge as a blitzer. He didn't always get to the quarterback, but he always influenced him. They played one game. Man, he was in the backfield as much as any of their halfbacks, and they couldn't block him. He made one sack that night. Brian, every pass, that quarterback was sailing him because Kaine was in the backfield. He highly recruited football. Could have went anywhere in the country. And we had this conversation. We're doing a show on WWL the night after the final signing date this year in February. And we're talking about the top players. And I just had a feeling Kaine was not going to stay in the state of Louisiana. I think he wanted to have another experience. He had talked a lot about Alabama. We interviewed him last year at the pitch and catch camp, and he talked quite a bit about Alabama. I caught that. Listen, I didn't go to Cornell or Harvard or Yale, but even I can figure it out. When some guy talks to that extent about a school, he's got a lot of interest. And I think he's a good fit for what Alabama plays defensively. And like I said, he is built along the lines of Ronnie Harrison when he came out of high school. Very, very much so. And really physical player and terrific against the run. He's got good hands for the interception. I think he's going to need a little bit of work in the pass coverage part of the game, but I think he can get better at that. But I'm telling you, he was the top defensive back in the state of Louisiana. And there is no ifs, ands, buts, maybes. He was the best here in the state of Louisiana. Certainly the best safety, but he was the best defensive back in this class for 2021. That's a big catch for Alabama. They had not been in the city of New Orleans or in that area to grab a player in some time. It had been a little while now since Alabama had come to the city, and really, John Eric's a little bit outside the city of New Orleans, but still it's in the vicinity. They had gotten guys from Amite and from North Louisiana, but to come here, that's a big catch, especially after LSU wins a national championship.